Hello, thank you for tuning into my channel. I'm working on some tote bags today that are super simple. So if you want to see how to make a bag like this, please stay tuned. If you've been following my channel over the last couple weeks, you know that I've been working on fall festivals. I was making the zipper pouches for my school fall festival, and there's another fall festival coming up, and so I wanted to increase my inventory. After I got done with the first festival, my mom reminded me that I made bags a long time ago, at this point, probably about 10 years ago. I was making some bags, and she suggested that I look for some of those old bags that I made before. And I wanted to pull one of them out to show you. This was the kind of thing that I was making before. And they have a snap on the inside, and they have a contrasting fabric and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, this one's been used. Right now, these bags are mostly like for grocery bags when I go to the store. And if I wanted to make more of these, it would be kind of challenging. Number one, because I actually made these with 5 panels, so you can see, like, I don't know if you can see the seam line, but there's a seam line right there. And I don't remember how I did this other than probably a ton of hand sewing and a lot of tedious stitching. So I was thinking about a way to make a bag that was easier, and so this is not a new design by any means, but it's just a way to make a super simple bag. And so if you need to whip something up real quick, you can do it if you just have a little bit of fabric and a little bit of interfacing. If you choose, you don't even have to make these with interfacing. And I've actually made them since I have another fall festival coming up. I'm making 3 different sizes, so I'll pull those here. This one's small, medium, and large. And the process is the same for each bag. One thing that I like about this bag is that it can stand up by itself. The big ones have been kind of packed away, and so I have to finagle them so that they stand. But this is a bag that can stand on its own, and it still has plenty of space. It only has 2 seams to join it, and then a seam to put the layers together, and a seam to top stitch. So let's go over how we make this bag. First, we'll do some materials. One neat thing about this bag is that you can go ahead and do a lot of chain piecing on it. I have a goal to make 10 bags a week, so I've been doing each step all at once. So I did all the cutting first and so on. I like this because if you want to, I'll show you the ones that I've been making. These right here, it could be considered like a set. All 3 of these are actually the same fabric. It was kind of a border print. And so if you have large pieces of fabric like this, you can go ahead and cut all 3 sizes if you want to. That's kind of what I did for this process. I do need to say it's about a 2-hour bag from start to finish. Each size was about 2 hours. So if you need to whip one out fairly quickly, like a day before, you can, I think, pretty easily. So I've already cut all my pieces this is for 8 bags. But I don't know which one you'll see every time because I'm just going to work on them all at once. But for each bag, you're going to need, let me show you here, 1 rectangle. This is going to be my lining fabric for this particular bag. 1 rectangle for your feature fabric or your outside fabric. And then 2 straps. You'll need, oh yeah, so this one actually has 2 straps. My smaller bag has shorter straps, and so you need 2 straps of each fabric to get started. So when it comes to the size, you can kind of determine what size you need for your bag. You just want to make sure that you account for the depth. When I measured, since this bag at this point, since it's flat, I just measured from top to bottom here, and then from side to side here, and then I added a half inch, or no, I added 1 inch to cover the seam allowances. You add whatever seam allowance you feel like is best. And so I did that since, again, I already had all 3 sizes. I measured each size of the bag, and that determined my finishing sizes. If you want more information about that, leave it in the comments, and I can add it in another video, or I can add it in the description. Okay, so start with these, and then for each bag, you need to think about, if you want to line it with a stabilizer or an interfacing, you can. You don't really have to. At the end of the video, I'll show you one that was stabilized the way that I did it, and then one that has no stabilizer in it, and one that has both sides stabilized, or both fabrics with the interfacing on it. I'm using, for this one, I'm actually only lining one of these fabrics, usually the thinner one. So like for this bag, I would probably put interfacing on the lining fabric. And I'm using the Pellon Decor Bond. It's number 809. And I'm cutting a rectangle, one per bag, that is just a little bit smaller. So for example, these rectangles for my smaller bag are 16 by 29, and so I'm cutting just a little bit smaller for my interfacing because it reacts differently with each piece of fabric, and I don't want it hanging over the edge. So after this point, after you have all your cutting done, then you can make your straps. So let's go over how to do that. I'm showing how you make the steps of the straps, and it's a 4-step process. The first stage is you're going to fold your strip in half, and you're going to press it, and it's going to be wrong sides together. So the first thing, you press that. Then you're going to open that back up and press one side toward the center. Let me show you with this one. So you'll open it, and then you'll press one side over to the line, to that center line, like that. And so you'll have your piece that looks like this. Then you're going to open it back up and take the other side. And so if I hold this open, you can see that both edges are folded toward the center. Then I'm going to, you press it from the opposite side. So here's where they're both going to the center. And then I just flip it over and press it. And then to put the straps together, this one's not done, but I'm just going to show you. You're going to just lay these right on top of the other, and then do a top stitch on this side close to the one edge, and then close to the other edge. So I'll do that, and I'll show you what it looks like. I want to do a quick little close-up on the straps, because it's important on these straps that you use a matching thread. For a lot of the other parts, it doesn't matter, but for the straps, and then for the top stitching at the end, you do need to use a matching thread. I'm going to flip this over. I didn't exactly use a matching thread on the back. I used a variegated. So you can see, like over here, it kind of matches, but here it doesn't. But since this is the lining, nobody's going to really look at that. Most of your attention is going to be on this adorable little ladybug fabric. And since I have a bigger bag out of this same material, you can see it on the bigger strap as well. Okay, the top stitching hopefully matches this other one. Not so much. But it doesn't matter because, again, this is the lining. So now let's talk about some interfacing. So now we're on the side of my sewing area that I actually work in. Most of my videos are in my kitchen, but I wanted to just kind of save time and do the filming over here exactly where I'm sewing. When it comes to interfacing for your bag, it's completely optional. You do not have to add interfacing. It's going to make your bag really floppy. But if that's the look you're going for, or like if it's just for a grocery bag, it's not as important. But let me show you one that doesn't have interfacing in it. This bag, the reason it doesn't have interfacing is because I made an error and I accidentally put interfacing in the front, the lining and the outer fabric on another bag. So this one, you can see it's floppy. Even though it has a gusset, it's really hard to stand up. But I'm going to hold on to it anyway. Let's see. See, it'll kind of do something. But it's a little bit floppy. But it's still a fine bag. It'll still do what you need it to do. Now, here's one. Here's the one that accidentally got both layers faced. It's very sturdy. Wait. It's been packed, and so I have to just kind of finagle it out. Alright, there we go. But you can see that it stands really nicely on its own. But again, it has both layers with the interfacing or the stabilizer. And this one, it only has one part stabilized. And it's the same bag as this one, right? This is the medium-sized bag. And, it does stand up pretty nicely. But you need to kind of think about that. If you want to use interfacing, you absolutely can. Either a little bit or a lot or none at all. Either way, whatever you choose is fine. And it will, if you choose not to use interfacing, it saves a little bit of time. But for me, pressing on the interfacing is about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe a little bit more than that. So time-wise, it didn't really matter to me. So right now, I'm going to push all these bags to the side. And for this particular bag with the ladybug, this broadcloth is the thinner fabric, which will be the lining. So I'm going to put the interfacing on the back of this. And then when we come back, we'll start getting ready to put the snaps on. It's time to add fasteners now to the lining of the bag. Now, if I decide to interface the outer portion, I would add just a small piece of interfacing on this. But since this already has interfacing on it, I'm just going to go ahead and mark and add the lines. Now, for the snaps, they actually come with 2 little ends. I don't know which one is the male and female, but this is one. And then this is the other one here. Okay, and you can see how they would fit together this way. Uh-oh. Hope I didn't make a mistake. Okay. And then they have these little clasps, little things that go on the back. Let me see if I can find the little hole. So I'm going to take 2 of these out. Okay. And then one goes with each part. Alright, so from this point on, so now the first thing that I'm going to do is kind of measure. And you can eyeball this, but for the sake of the video and I've been doing this, fold it in half. Okay, just so you can find a center. Alright, and then I'm going to just finger crease here. Okay, do that on both ends for a nice center. Let's make sure we got it. Alright, and then I can measure. I think I'm going to do these at 2.5 inches from the top, but it doesn't really have to be. It could be a little bit longer or shorter, just whatever you think is best. You probably should put it closer to the top of the bag just because of so it'll be easier to pull apart. But this is the 2.5 mark, and I'm just going to put a little mark that goes right across that line. Same thing on the other side. And one person asked if it was easy to put these snaps on. It really is super simple. We'll just go over it quickly right now so that you can see how simple this is. Again, the 2.5 mark. And I'm just putting that line right across so that it goes right across the crease that I just made. Okay. Now I'm going to take the back side of these and I'm going to put it right on across that line, the center of that. And then I'm going to just put 2 little marks because you don't really need the center mark, but you do need these 2 outside marks to help you know where it goes. Same thing on the other side. Go right across that line. And so the hole is in the center, and then I'm just making these little marks on either side. Okay? And now I'm just going to take this and fold it over, and I'm going to snip these 2 lines that I just made just to put a little hole in the interface and then in my fabric. And this is going to be where I'm going to insert the parts. So again, clipping here, and then it's as easy as, let's see, okay. All right, so now from this point on, if it matters to you which one is the front and which one is the back, then just be mindful of that when you're putting the bag together. For me, it doesn't matter. Now I'm just taking the, I've taken this, I think this is the female, I really have no idea. And I just slid those little parts through the little slits. And then you place this little section, this little piece on the back. Okay, uh-oh. And then these little parts you just kind of press down with your fingers. I'm going to turn it because I feel like I have more leverage if I'm going this way. Now if you have batting, or this could be a little bit more challenging, and so you might have to like take a little small hammer and kind of just hammer it down. Alright, and then put the other side through here. Same thing, put these parts through the little slits. There we go. This little part on the back. And now we're all set. Let me turn it again. Ouch. This one hurts a little bit, but we got it. I'm just going to put it down a little bit more. There we go. So now they're both in, and they're going to be completely enclosed once this thing is stitched together. But you can see how they go. Now the next step is going to be to stitch down the sides of each of these. And you'll do that for the lining and for the outer fabric. So I'll do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like. The next part for me, it's like the really great thing about this bag, and it's creating that that gusset, which is that gap between the front and back of the bag that makes it stand. So I have, number one, I've used a neutral thread here on the sides. Since it's going to be on the inside of the bag, it really doesn't matter what color thread you use. So you can use up some of your old bobbins or something like that. I'm just using my normal gray thread that I use for quilting. So I've back stitched at both the top and the bottom, and we're going to be working around the bottom of the bag. So the first thing that I'm going to do is clip this little seam, like clip the seam allowance at an angle right there. Let's do that on both sides here. But I only do this part on one side at a time. So the next step, I'm going to open this out. Okay. And I kind of want it to be even on both sides of the seam here. And then I'm going to press this open And for the sake of the video for the camera right here, I'm going to try and press it with my right hand, even though I'm left-handed. But what you want is you want the seam to be open. I'm just moving this to make sure there's no bulk under there. So let's see if I can press it with my right hand. I hope I can. Oh. I'm just going to open it out a little bit more again. And you don't really have to press very far into the seam. You just want to press it this way. And the deeper the bag is going to be, depending on how big of a pocket you want when you sit this bag upright, it determines how far you're going to press in here. Now next, I'm going to take a ruler here, and I'm going to try, since my depth is about 4 inches, I'm going to try and get 2 inches on each side of the seam. It rarely works that way, but I'm just going to try it out and make sure. And I'm just making sure that the numbers kind of match. So this line over here, you probably can't see it, is at the 7 inch. And so I want this one right here to be at the 3 inch, and that'll be my 4 inch depth. Okay, and so I'm just going to draw a line like this, and I'm going to stitch along this line. So I'll do that off camera, and then I'll show you the next step. I've stitched on the line here on the lining of the bag, and you can see that there's just this triangle left hanging over. And I'm going to cut this off in a few minutes, but first I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, and I'm going to do the outer part of this bag as well. So they both get the same treatment for the gusset. So let me finish both of those, and then I'll show you the next step. I've stitched both parts of my bag. This is the outside bag, and I have the triangle stitched on both sides. So at this point, I'm just going to cut this off, making sure there's nothing else under there. I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch at the bottom. And I'm actually going to hold on to these because I think they'll make adorable little prairie points one day. And I'm going to cut this side off. Same thing. And then I'm going to press this whole side seam open. I flip my ironing board around so I kind of have a little hook thing or whatever to put the bag on. And then you're just going to kind of press the seam. I'm just pressing it open and flat. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, it doesn't matter what color thread you're using here when you're stitching these up, because these seams are going to be on the inside of the bag. I just want it to be as flat as it can be. So I'm just kind of pressing it. For the outside of the bag, because I'm usually doing chain piecing for these, I normally turn the outside of the bag right side out to get to the next step. So I'm going to do that right now. And hopefully we can see a little standing action. I'm just going to push the corners out. They should be fine. They should be nice and perky and pointy. Okay, let's see if it'll stand. And it kind of is. Of course, it doesn't have any stabilizer in it. If it had stabilizer, it could stand a little bit taller. But the lining is going to have the stabilizer. So I'm going to do the same thing with the lining, but I'm going to leave it wrong side out. And then we'll get these straps on and get this bag put together. I have both sections done of my bag. Here's the lining. You can see with that stabilizer, it stands up very nicely. This one, once I put it on, it's going to be fine as far as standing up. So the next step is going to be to start putting this together. I like to start by putting my straps onto the outer part of the bag. That's why it's right side up, because that's where the straps are going to go. On these, there's a little bit of overhang on each one. I'm going to chop that off right quick so that it can be flush with the edge of the bag when I stitch it on. And then for this part, I'm not very particular. I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I think the strap should go. And I've pressed these open, but I do kind of fold them down and just look at the bag and see where I want each strap to go. This strap is going to go same side together. So the outer fabric is going to be touching the outer fabric of the bag. And I'm, again, just kind of eyeballing. And I'm going to pin it in place. Let's see, about right here. Alright, and then check about the same distance on the other side. Like so. And then I'm going to pin it on the same. I'm going to just kind of match the other side up, match the other straps up on the other side. And then we're going to pin this thing together. So let me pin these quickly. Again, just not even eyeballing these. I'm just lining them up, matching the straps with where they are on the other side. Okay. And then here, I'm just going to hold it up, see where the other strap is. Wait, let's make sure this is good. Okay. See where the other strap is and put it in the same spot. Okay. I'm pinning the straps a little bit lower because I do like to pin the outer bag to the lining. All right, so now from this point, I'm going to slide the outer section of the bag, just slip it in here. Okay, and I'm going to match up the corners and pin. And then I'm going to pin the rest of it. For this part, you want to make sure that you leave an opening because you are going to have to turn this bag. So as I'm lining up the side seams, I'm thinking about where I'm going to leave my opening. And there's only one decent place for me, as far as I'm concerned, to leave that opening, and that's between the straps. So in the next little part, as I get ready to pin this, I just kind of pull it as tight as it can go. You want them to kind of match up. And then it probably should be the back side. So this is kind of the back side, the part with the smaller snap. Okay, and then I'm going to, for this side, I'm going to pin at the start of the seam and at the stop of the seam, and I'll show you that after I pin it. Since I'm a lefty, I have to get it pinned first, and then I'll show it to you. Okay. Alright, so here, this is going to be my starting point, and I'm going to stitch all the way around, and this will be my stopping point. I'm going to add a few more pins, and then I will meet you back here at the sewing machine to start going around this. For this step, I've actually raised the insert on my table so that my table is completely level. And then I'm going to take away this little attachment so that I can do my free whatever with this. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. I have everything pinned like I want it. And for most of the bag, for the rest of the bag, I did a 3/8 inch seam allowance. But for the top, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I don't know, to me it just seems right to add a little bit more up at the top because I am going to come back and top stitch this. So I have my This foot is about 3/8 inches. It's my regular sewing foot that came with my machine. And then there's a mark that says 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to stitch all the way around this bag, back stitching at the beginning and at the end. And remembering that I have a, I'm going to leave a gap for turning when I'm done with this. So I'll speed up the video and then I'll show you what it looks like before it's time to turn it. The bag is now ready for turning. I went ahead and pulled all the pins out, and then I fished out the ones that were in the straps so that it won't be, like it won't hurt me when I go in there to pull it out. So you just start, I'm going to take whatever the outside is, and I'm just pulling that. Well, let's see, maybe the inside this time, I don't know. It really doesn't matter what you pull. I backstitched at the beginning, at the end, and the end, so it should be fine to get through it. I'm just pulling everything through this opening. I'm going to finish pulling this through on camera, off camera, and then I'll show you how we press it before we do the top stitch. Here's the bag so far as it's turned inside out. It is a little wrinkled, the outside is, but I'm not going to really stress about that. I'm going to press it when it's all done. But right now we need to press it for top stitching. All we're doing is just pressing this very top of the bag to flatten it out so it'll be nice and smooth. And the main thing that we want to get, or that I want to get, is this little opening. I just want to make sure it's pressed nice and flat. So I'll start here. And it's not really completely necessary to go over the whole bag unless you absolutely want to. I just want to make sure that I get this seam nice and flat. And then we're going to top stitch this right along the top edge. If you get a little bit, like I think I'm going to have a little tiny pucker right there, but you won't be able to tell it because this is on the, quote, back of the bag, so it should be okay. Okay, and then of course you can press that down. So I'm going to press all around it, just a little quick press, and then go to the machine and give it a final top stitch. At this time you do want to change your thread back to the matching colors, so I'm going to take that gray out and put the greens back, and then we'll get it top stitch and I'll show you what the final product looks like. So here is the finished bag. I really like the way it turned out. There are, like I said, a few puckers like right there with the top stitching, but it still looks like a great bag. You can see the snaps on the inside, and the stabilizer is on the lining fabric, and it helps it to stand up really nicely. You can see that I'm not doing anything. It's really neat and cool, and to be honest, it probably took more time to make the video. I mean, a lot more time to make the video than it did to actually complete the bag. It's about a 2-hour process from start to finish. Really, to me, really worth it for a super simple bag that you can whip up as a gift right quick. And of course, I'm whipping these up right quick because of a fall festival that's coming up in a couple weeks. So a great process. I think a really sturdy, fun bag. If you have any questions about this project, please leave them in the comments below. Please thumbs up this video, share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!